In this video, I will walk you through my creative process of drawing this piece of illustration by using the crayon brush set that I have created for Procreate, and you can find the link below if you're interested. All right, let's get started by actually making sure you have a brand new layer, which I do. And let's warm up by drawing something simple first. So just looking at the leaf, we have several colored layers so that we have some rich texture. For the bottom half of the leaf, I actually started out with some like almost peachy yellow tone. And let's get started by using the first brush that is called Grungy, which is pretty rich in texture. All right. And you can exaggerate the texture by increasing the size of your brush, and then you can just make sure you have a light hand when you're drawing this so the texture is more prominent. And if you use more pressure, just like a real crayon, the texture is more consistent and smooth. All right, so now we have our first layer, and then I'm gonna add second shade of kind of lime, slightly lighter than lime green. It's on a separate layer, and I'm gonna use a different brush. This one is called Soft. So this one feels like softer crayon, almost like a pastel, but still on the harder side. I'm not too concerned about having perfect edges, because for this style of illustration, I think it's prettier and helpful to show some texture. So it looks more like, give you more of a hand draw look and feel. And then let's work on the other half. I'm gonna choose the third brush that is called Hard. It is exactly what it says. It just feels harder. For one, you have to press harder to lay down the marks, but also you can see within your stroke, within your marks, there's also some texture. There's some slight tone variation within the stroke. So this one is very dynamic. So that's my first layer for the second half. And by the way, whenever you want to use eraser, you want to make sure the eraser has the same shape as the brush, so the edges don't look too weird. To do that, you can just long hold your eraser while your brush is selected, and when you erase, you're using the same texture to erase, so the edges look natural. All right, let's create a new layer and go over to sample a darker green. And I'm gonna use the, actually I'm gonna use the, go back to the soft one. If you want richer interaction between two layers, you can change the blend mode. And to do that, you can just go to your layers panel and then tap on N. By default, it's normal, so that's why it's N. And you can just scroll through different options. Multiply is always a good thing to try. So I'm gonna use linear light for this one. There's some areas that's kind of hard to reach with my grungier crayons, so I'm gonna use either a thinner version of it by decreasing the size of the brush, or by going to the soft and fine. So if I create a new layer now and just show you what this crayon look like, it almost behaves like a colored pencil. You can see the edges are pretty jagged and texture rich, but the middle is very smooth and filled in. So this is great for the edges if you want the edges to be slightly smoother but not losing the texture. For example, now I have a new layer. I'm gonna go over the edges a little bit. And you can also change the blend mode of this layer as well, so have a more interesting color dynamic. Even like adds highlight. Don't be afraid of using something that is not found in nature, like use pink for highlight for the leaves. That's totally fine too. It's the fun of being creative. So you got to create things that hasn't existed in the world yet. I have a feeling that my second leaf is gonna look a little bit different than the first. That's okay. All right. And last but not least, I am going to create a layer at the bottom to for the stem. For this one, I'm gonna use the fifth brush that is called Textured and Streaky. So this is exactly what it is. If I make it super big and just draw a stroke, you can tell it is textured and streaky. So I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller just to go through the bottom of it. So it looks like the two pieces of the leaves are connected and not separated by a gap. It looks way darker over here. That is because the blend mode. So I'm gonna change the blend mode because this level of darkness is kind of distracting. I'm just gonna go through the blend mode to see which one looks better. Okay, maybe somewhere around here. And you can also change the opacity. So if you like some color but you want it to be slightly translucent, you can change the opacity as well. So over here. And then I'll sample a darker green to go over the stem one more time, so the stem doesn't look super flimsy. All right, so now that's our leaves. And we're going to draw this fruit. I wanted to say it's a peach, but not quite, because we have a lot of colors that you normally don't find it in peaches. Oh well. So I'm gonna lay down a layer of white because we have this light blue as a background. So I'm gonna kind of clear the palette a little bit by artificially create a layer of white. So I'm gonna use this brush called Blotchy, and this one is pretty blotchy. You can see the canvas texture in between the strokes. So I'm not covering every single pixel within the region. Again, I want the texture to be preserved. I just want this area to be lighter than the blue. There you go. And if you want this area to be filled in a little bit more, you can go back to some of the denser brushes like soft. And yeah, let's do that. again, I'm not looking for consistency here, so I'm constantly changing the angle of my brushes. Beginner illustrators who use Procreate often likes to use a color drop, which I think is, I guess it's good if textures are not important in your work, but I find it way more interesting to just fill in an area manually because you can see so much texture. All right, so now we have the general shape of the peach. I'm gonna put another layer of warm tone with a different texture. I'm gonna use this coarse. So if I use a darker color to show you what the brush is like, it's very crayon like. You can almost see the grains, individual grains. So I'm gonna use that for a second layer. Make sure we have a new layer created, because when you change your mind, you can always go back and delete that layer if that's doesn't align with your creative vision. In this layer, I'm doing circles, so there's a bit of gestural contrast between the white and the peach. All right, and I'm gonna use my soft to create a kind of like the ridges or the bumps on the peach. And again, I want to create a new layer. We're not being very precise, and that is okay. And basically from this point on, I will just be alternating between all the brushes of the same set, and also changing the size of the brushes so that we can create this like very energetic presentation of the fruit. So I'm gonna use a yellow and maybe streaky, textured and streaky brush. And you can also change the blend mode so that you see a bit more interaction between areas of colors. So I'm just gonna doodle my way through. You can see in this area and here, I have some oranges. So I'm just gonna do that. And in this time, I'm gonna use the hard brush because I want the texture to be a little rougher. And again, I will change the blend mode. Ooh, I actually really like this blue, but let's see. Okay, I'll stay with this orange right now because we have another layer of blue later. If you stumbled on something while you're drawing, don't be afraid to modify your vision just to experiment. Even though following the same tutorial, people might create completely different work. Whenever that happens, I just love it. Okay, let's use this very energetic pink. Make sure we have a new layer. Yes, we do. Awesome. Ooh, I think I'm gonna keep this green. It's not natural, but this whole fruit is not supposed to be natural, so that's okay. And then we have a bit of highlight on top of that. So let's grab a new layer and draw something on top. I'm gonna use the soft and fine. So our lines are more solid. And I'm gonna change the blend mode to make it stand out even more. So right now it's screen. Okay, I'm gonna scroll through and see if the blend mode can be a different effect. Yeah, this seems to be a little too bright, kind of kills a lot of texture underneath it. So I'm gonna dial it down a bit. So opacity now is about only 60%. Okay, better. And then I will be adding a bit of orange on top of this pink. Okay, let's go to orange. We can sample the color. I guess I can sample the color, but basically it's if you want to manually adjust, I like to use the HSB to adjust. So tap on your color and tap on value. H stands for hue, so you want to stay in the orange zone, and then you change the saturation and the brightness. And then make sure we have a new layer. Yes, we do. And I'm gonna use this canvas texture. It's even rougher, but also if you're using a rougher texture and then you draw multiple times on top of the same area, you get a smoother rendition, even though the brush itself is very rough. Okay, I just want to brighten up this area, warm up this area a bit. Okay, multiply. Nice. All right. The last one that I used is called Texture Light Coverage. So this one is pretty much just gliding on the paper very, very lightly with a crayon. I feel like this orange is a bit overpowering the pink underneath, not really showcasing what's underneath. So I'm gonna change the blend mode to linear light, and then I will also go to the hue, saturation, brightness to adjust. I'm gonna change the hue and also the saturation to a point where I feel happy about it. Okay, this is better. So in this rendition, which is a darker shade of the original orange that I have chosen, kind of does not overpower the pink underneath under the same blend modes. So now I'm gonna add the shading with this dark blue. I'm gonna use the soft and fine. Just like draw through it, this area. And I'll change the blend mode to hard light. So you can still see the texture underneath, but the blue is not too altered. I can do this all day. And we also notice there's a bit of rough texture on the side. So I'm gonna create a new layer. So far we have probably 15 layers, which is great because that gives us more flexibility if we want to change just one detail of the drawing. So let's go to, let's go to this green and see what effect we can have. So I'm gonna go to canvas texture. Actually, yeah, let's do canvas texture. It's a little too rich, so I'm gonna switch to blotchy. Better. So I want this rough crayon texture to be on top of these colors. I'm gonna change the blend mode again to a point where I see the shading, but also the shading is not overpowering what's underneath. And you can adjust the opacity like I said before. And last but not least, I'm gonna create this little stem by using the soft and fine. This is great for a finer area, which is hard to reach by crayons. It's almost like if you have a very, very soft crayon and then you sharpen it in the pencil sharpener, which I don't do in real life, but in the digital world, I think it's handy to have. I feel like it's a waste of crayon when you sharpen them. Now I'm gonna just add a bit of dimension to this little stem. There you go. So that is how I have created this illustration with the crayon brush set. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you in the next video.